Welcome back to Authentic Talks. You guys, I'm really excited about this episode. I thought that we would bring something a little different to the show where it's something that I absolutely loved and I've been participating in since I was about the age of 20, and not as the actual artist, but as a audience listener or participator in the audience. And so today I invited a young lady to come on the show who's been writing her own poetry for 7 years, and she's now using her voice. And she explains her entire story on this episode, and I think that you guys, again, are really going to enjoy the episode. So without further ado, please put your hands together, put your fingers together, you guys, because you know in poetry we snap. And please welcome Aaliyah, also known as Hazel Lane, to Authentic Talks. Authentic Talks is all about authentic conversations. This show is all about growth, love, respect, success, mind, body, and spirit. If you're looking to grow and become your authentic self, then this is the podcast for you. And I am your host, Shanta. Welcome to the show. Hi, Aaliyah. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to have you. I'm excited for the audience to meet you and to find out all about Aaliyah. Can you please introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yes, of course. So my name is Aaliyah. I actually go by the name Hazel, which is my stage name because I am a poet. I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I've been doing poetry for about 7 years now. I was performing heavily until, with the whole coronavirus thing, I had to kind of step away because basically, everything was shut down. But it also gave me time to kind of get back into writing my poetry and actually just meditating on it.
I bet it is really therapeutic to be able to do spoken word. What is the right name that I should call it? Is it spoken word poetry or is it just like spoken word?
Well, a lot of people call it different things. Some people call it spoken word. Some people just call it poetry, or they'll just call me as a poet. So there's different names for it, but it's all the same thing.
Can you describe for someone who has never heard of what a spoken word artist or poetry is?
So basically I can only describe it as for myself. So to me, poetry is my outlet. Poetry has been something that I've loved to do since high school, because back in, especially my senior year, even from sophomore year of high school, I kind of was that type of person where I kind of was an introvert. So I was always to myself, and I just was like, you know what, let me just start writing, because I feel like a lot of things go on in my head, and it's I can't necessarily express how I feel unless I write it out and I say it. So I felt like that was kind of the start of poetry for me. And so it got to a point where when I started college, I was really there was just something in me that was you know what, you should try to perform in it. And for a long time, I was battling with this on and off constantly because, in all honesty, I am afraid of public speaking. So it took a lot out of me just to say, I'm going out there, I'm just going to do it. And when I kept doing it and kept going for it, it just felt more natural.
That's actually huge for anyone listening in who feel like they have a desire that poetry is calling them, but yet they feel like they're not able to do that because of that piece of the stage fright.
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing it for 7 years?
Yes. Well, I've been on and off performing for about 7 years, but writing, yes, for 7 years completely.
Whenever you are writing your poetry, it's just anything that comes to your mind?
Yeah, basically, I could just be sitting outside and just watching how the wind just moves the leaves on the trees, and I'll probably just write something about that and describe it. But most of the time, what I write about is love, because I feel like I'm a big hopeless romantic. So I'm always in love with the idea of love. So I'm just always in a daze thinking maybe this is what love would be, and maybe this is what it would feel like. So I'll write about that. Or if I went through something personally where I was heartbroken, so then I'm going to write about what happened in a poetic way.
That's kind of cool. That's therapeutic. If you had to describe your best moment on stage, what would that be?
I would say just watching like the crowd's facial expressions. There was this one moment where I had performed at a local place in Fayetteville. It's called the Creative Space Station. Like, I had performed there, and I promise you, it was like the best reaction that I ever got. It was like me telling a story, and like little kids just like so into it, like, ooh, ah. They were so animated with it. They were like, ooh, that was good. Ooh. The feedback just pumped me up even more, and it just made me feel even more comfortable expressing how I was feeling through that poem.
So if I were to ask you to share with the listeners one of your poems, would you be comfortable doing that now?
Of course, yes.
Yay! I have a question. What is this? When you're done and everybody goes like this. You know what I'm talking about?
Snapping.
Yeah.
Snapping. I honestly, when I first went to a place where they did poetry, I was that person that would clap, and then everybody else was snapping, and I was like, wait, are we supposed to snap with poetry? Because, you know, like, when you go, because, you know, you go to other places, like, all you see is people clapping. But with poetry, like, they just snap. And I was like, ooh, I kind of like that. Like, it's different.
I first have to tell you that it is an art that I respect. It's something that I admire. I look at people performing. It doesn't matter. Everybody's different in their approach and style. And I absolutely love it. I love it. And my first time going to a place, I was just like sitting there, and I was the same way. I was like, wow, that was good. And I said, oh, and I was all happy. And I started going like this. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, I looked around. Everybody was doing that. They were like snapping their fingers. And I was like, oh, it didn't take me long to catch on, though. I was like, oh. And then I said, I don't know if I could do this for every person that comes on stage, because I could barely snap, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but I did it, and I enjoyed it, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. But where I live now, we don't have the opportunity to have that. So I'm excited to have you here and for you to share, and I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, yeah. So this one is called Life. I actually had wrote this back in 2013. Yeah, in 2013. But I kind of recently revamped it, kind of tweaked it here and there. So here it goes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hazel to the stage.
Okay. Sometimes I wish I could get away from it all. I barely speak because when I speak, I feel like it doesn't sound right. Well, maybe if I write it on paper, it'll sound right. You see, my mind isn't right. I take 10 steps forward to take 20 steps back. And every time I try to move forward, it's like my evil twin is on my back, bringing things back to my remembrance. The pain from the lessons it taught me and the people who was a hindrance. 4 walls are closing in on me and all I see is people stare. They say they see the vision, but all I see is a glare. Wait, let me think straight before I lose myself. People can't cope the pain, so they bruise themselves because the lack of loyalty and justice make people look afflicted. Are you getting this? People's morals are changing, hearts are breaking. But wait, what if the pain is within us? What if the boundaries we set on ourselves is the reason we can't excel? And what if people don't believe us because of the lies we tell? Ouch. I know times are getting hard right now. I feel like I'm in someone's backyard right now. But just keep your head up. And anything the enemy do is to set up. He don't want to see you make it. And anything that costs you happiness, he's going to try to break it. So just stay focused because your hard work don't go unnoticed. Thank you.
I tried to do the snap for you. Can't even hear it. I'm like, oh, that was good. I absolutely love it. So what have you been doing like while we've had the COVID-19 as far as being able to have your outlet?
Well, I still write, so I'm able to have that portion of my outlet. And then also, like, I have kids, so they take up a lot of my time, you know. And they're like really little kids. So, like,
Okay.
so I have a 3-year-old and I have a 2-year-old, so they keep me on my toes, you
Oh
know.
yeah. But yeah, definitely. Do you find yourself like sharing it with your kids?
Yes, I actually do. Like, especially my daughter. Let me tell you, like, my kids are like my biggest fans, because I have this poem. It's called Soul Ties. It's actually on my YouTube channel. My daughter, she was watching. Well, both of my kids, they were watching it. One day, my daughter was talking to her grandfather, and I don't remember the whole conversation, but she had said a line out of my poem, because in my poem I said, like, tell the truth with no lies. And then so she went to my dad and was like, tell the truth with no lies. so, so she'll actually like quote what I'm saying. And even when she looks at the videos, like, she's like, that's mommy, that's mommy. And just that right there just melts my heart, you know.
Wow,
Just
that's
seeing, yeah, just seeing that my kids really love what I do and enjoy seeing me do what I love to do just makes me feel like, yeah, I need to continue doing this, you know?
yes, yes. I love it. I feel like it makes me feel happy.
Right.
Yeah, it just adds like something that's different. It's like it's not the same like going to watch a play. It's just our movie. It's just different. It's more interactive, although you are the one speaking. And then as the listener, it just is trying to really kind of describe so that you could know as from someone just listening how it
Hmm.
feels. It feels like I feel like I can't believe I have few words to describe it because there's a million words in a dictionary, but it's touching. It lights you up. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel some sense of like you're a part of a piece of the person's journey because you wrote that. Whenever you're performing it, it's like your personality that comes through. So,
Right.
although those are words on the paper, it's like you brought it to life because I could read that and it's not going to sound the same like when you read it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So I was like, wow, she got a little flavor going on there with it, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. Because
Hmm.
when I notice, like, with me, whenever I perform, it's my raw emotions, like how I was feeling during that time. It just comes out when I say the words. It's really hard to describe, but it's just when you write it, you know what kind of tone you wrote it in. You know how you were feeling at that moment. So it's like when you go out and you perform it, you're performing it how you felt it. So I feel like
Hmm.
that's how it becomes interactive, because the crowd is feeling the emotions that you are putting out there.
Yeah, you described it very well. That's exactly what it is. I felt that when you were performing. I was like, wow, dang, this is pretty good, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah. So, what is it like in North Carolina when you go to perform? Is it like, do you find that there's a lot of places where you can perform, or is it like far and few, like the norm, you know?
I feel like at times it can be kind of a few places that you can go to. I know that we're trying to get more places that you can perform at, and I know that there are some places that they might do it every Monday or like every other Monday or like once a month type of thing, you know. But I feel like also, in my opinion, I feel like the poetry scene of things doesn't really get as much credit as it should. So it's like you can find a music place, like you can find where there's like live performance of music everywhere. But when it comes to poetry, it's like far and few. People are actually out there trying to make events where it is. And then even with me personally, I get invited to perform at artist showcases. And normally I'm like the only poet that's there to perform, and everyone else is doing music.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, like at first I kind of was getting discouraged because I was like, oh, because, you know, like sometimes like I can overthink things. So I'm like, oh, I'm the only poet. Like, what if they don't like it? Because like this is different. But then I had to realize that God made me different for a reason.
Woo!
So
right on, you know?
yeah,
And different is okay, you know?
it is. Yeah, it took me a while. It really did, because like I was saying, how majority of the people that I was around would do music. So it was like, oh, like trying to fit in, you know, like, oh, like let me get into some music, da da da. And then when I tried it, it was just, to me, it just wasn't working out. Like it didn't feel as natural as it did when I do my poetry, you know. And even people would realize it. They were like, how come you're not as passionate in your music as you are in your poetry? And that right there just showed, like, it showed me that, you know what, like, I don't have to fit in with everybody else. I don't have to do what everybody else does. Me doing my poetry is what makes me different and what makes me stand out.
You're absolutely right about that. Do you find that you read a lot being a poet?
In all honesty, I really don't read that much. I do a lot of researching, but it's not necessarily like poetry related. I just research like random things, how to do this, how to make this type of thing. But yeah, in all honesty, I don't really read that much. I want to get back into reading though.
Did you find that as a child that you had this inside of you, young, the age of maybe a little older than your kids, but not too much older? Or is it something that you feel just kind of woke up inside of you in high school?
I think, in all honesty, I probably knew that I had something in me, but I just didn't know what exactly it was. Like, I knew that when I was younger, I was really into singing. So I did a lot of singing, even in like church choirs. Like, they always had me singing. Like, sometimes they would even have me doing like the lead parts in songs. However, like when it came to poetry, it was kind of like one of those things where I started off with singing. And then it was like, well, I was only singing in the church. So when I had these thoughts in my head, I would try to write songs. And me trying to write these songs ended up turning into me writing poetry, if that makes sense. So it was kind of like it was there, but it just didn't develop into poetry until later on in life.
You actually can sing too?
Yeah, I can.
You're like, do I really want to admit this? Is she gonna ask me to sing?
Yeah, that's what went through my mind too. That's why I was like,
no, I really can't sing. You're like, I used to.
Yeah.
I won't put you on the spot.
Okay. I was about to say, I haven't been really singing in a while, so if I was to sing, I don't think it would sound that decent. It'll be okay, but you know, I don't want to scare the listeners off.
I don't think you could do that now after they heard your spoken word poetry, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, you got us. We're here to stay. We're gonna listen, you know? Now you mentioned that you have a YouTube channel. You share your poetry on YouTube, or is it kind of like what is your YouTube channel about?
So on my YouTube, I do have some of my poems recorded on there. So I do have some videos on there. I need to add some more videos on there. And I also have an Instagram page where I post some of my performance videos on. And yeah, so like with my Instagram, it's at Hazel Loves _ the letter U, where I have different pictures, because like I also like to take modeling photos. Like I have a lot of friends here that are photographers, so we just collab, and they're like, hey, like let's shoot a picture in this outfit, let's shoot a picture in that outfit. So I'm like, okay, cool. So with my Instagram, it's more of like some of my poetry and also some of my modeling photos that I help other people out with. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So how have things been for you with all of the things that have unfolded this year? 2020 has definitely shaped up to be quite a year between COVID-19 and then the protests.
Yeah, it's been a very challenging year. It's crazy because I was just talking to somebody about this, how, well, at the end of 2019, I was just like, yeah, 2020 is my year. Like, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be traveling and performing. You know, like, I was so hype about it.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I first started in 2020, like in January, like I was getting performances like back to back. I had like 3 performances in January that I did, and then in February I had 1 performance, but it was like in South Carolina. So I was like, well, like I never performed in like another state before. Like that was my first time. And then like in March I had performed at the beginning of March, and then everything was like up, shut down. Like and I was just
Yeah.
like, what? Like it just blew my mind, because I was like, what? Like I had performances get canceled, and it was just like, wow, you know. But it really taught me that like things in life that we try to hold on to can be temporary.
Mm. That's
You know,
huge. That, you know what,
it is.
that is so true, and that's very powerful because it
Yeah.
is true when you actually think about it.
Yeah, it really made me think about a lot of things. But yeah, like with things being temporary, and also like at the end of the day, like the only people you really have is your family.
Do you have like friends that also are into poetry where you guys could maybe come together and you can create your own event?
Yeah, I know that there are some people out there that I know personally that do poetry, where they'll have Facebook lives, or they'll do like what you said with the Zoom, where they'll have like different events that they hold where you can perform on there. However, with me personally, I can't really get into it, only because of the simple fact that I can't emotionally get involved with the crowd, if that makes sense. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's different when you're actually there with the crowd and they're feeling your emotions, versus like you just watching it through a screen.
But as an audience member, I could still watch it. It's kind of like, and still feel it and enjoy it. It's almost like going to like a comedy event, and then
Hmm.
you get to see the comedy live up in person, and then you could maybe watch it later on Netflix. And there is a huge difference between actually being there in the audience and watching it from the comfort of your home. And
Right.
you know, you feel good in a way about both. But there's nothing like
Yeah,
sitting in an audience, though, I'll tell you that.
that is true.
I used to live in California, and we had went to this, it was like a real small, like almost like a mom and pop type event.
Hmm.
And it was so small that like we had to wait on the side, and we were kind of like by the kitchen. And when people would walk by, I felt like I had to kind of press my back up against the wall so that they could get by, so that we wouldn't like really rub them, you know. There's this guy, he comes out, this little short guy. It was a comedy event. And so this guy comes out, and he's short. I'm taller than him, and I'm only like 5'3" and a half or so. And he's
Hmm.
just jumping and shaking his arms and just doing all this. I look over at this guy that I've never seen before, and I'm like, what the heck is he doing? And in my mind, I was like, what is he on? And so finally these people came, and they were like, oh, we have seats for you. So we go and we sit down, and it's really tight in there. And so here comes that guy that was jumping around and shaking his arms and going, ooh, and doing all that. And then
Hmm.
they go, please welcome Kevin Hart to the stage. And I go, oh my gosh. He was not really big at that time, but
Uh-huh.
my oh my gosh was, oh, that's why the guy was jumping and like doing all that. He was trying to get his blood circulation going and trying to psych himself up at that time in order to go on stage.
Hmm.
And so he was super funny. He really was. I was like, if this guy bumps me one more time, I'm going to let him have it.
I understand that.
Yeah, but I had no idea that it was Kevin Hart. Yeah, it was a good night though. I used to love going to comedy, poetry, plays, anything that was involving me sitting in the audience and there was a performer on stage. What's one of your favorite things to do outside of your poetry?
I would say that I love to go bowling. Like bowling is one of my go-tos. In all honesty, I don't really do much because I think that like some people get like a false perception where it's like, oh, like you're a poet, like your life is so adventurous, and most of the time it's really not. It's just I go out, I perform, you know, I do my thing, and I just live a regular life like anybody else with kids, you know, just come home, take care of the kids, cook, clean, and then I still work a 9 to 5. So work my 9 to 5, come home to my kids, kind of hang out, chill out. But I'm very family oriented. So a lot of times, like especially like on the weekends, like on Sundays, like after church, I'll go to my mom's house. Like me and the kids will just go over there and we'll just hang out for the whole day and just come on home.
Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with the regular life because I would say probably 99% of us have that.
Right.
Yeah. So are you doing like a podcast tour right now?
Yeah, kind of in a way. I just been kind of just reaching out to people, and, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, if they want you on the podcast, then they'll have you. If not, then not, you know. At least I'm trying to put myself out there, you know. I'm trying to reach other people to share my story, you know. Like, that's all I can really do. And God will send the right people, and the right people will reach out to me, and it'll touch the right people, like all the listeners. So
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Do you have another spoken word, a poem that you want to share with the audience?
yeah, of course. I have another one.
So what is the proper way? Like if you're coming to the stage, people are supposed to go like this, right?
Yeah, they still snap.
Okay. All right. Please welcome to the stage, Hazel.
Thank you. So this poem is a fan's favorite. It's called Soul Ties. Okay. Benefits with no ties. Tell the truth with no lies. It's hard to say when you hold your feelings inside. You shut yourself away as if I was the bad guy. If you wanted benefits with no ties, then why are we soul ties? You've been mentally gone for a minute. My feelings for you grew deep because I thought you was in it to win it, but your actions can't be forgiven. Listen, everything about you was so tempting. You wanted just the benefits, but my body wouldn't listen. You see, in a negative soul tie, that's where the enemy lies, waiting to devour you in a nice disguise. Thick thighs and nice eyes, but you don't realize the soul you entice. Your soul is searching for someone to long for, just like mine is. But in your lies is where the enemy lives. In your negative soul tie, it's not something you just had to physically give, but it became your addiction. And in the eyes of a human, that is not good for you. Your soul lives. Now you're fighting the temptation. You're fighting to stay alive. But you go back to that negative soul tie and you actually die. You die little by little, to the point no one recognizes you. You die to yourself and you're becoming the monster you said you would never become. All over one soul tie. A soul tie that lies that you don't even realize. A soul tie that you got yourself so intertwined because you believe the enemy's lies. You went off of a good vibe, but you didn't realize the soul that was held inside. Now you have a soul tie because you believe the enemy's lies. Now it's hard for you to run away because the feelings you held inside. But it was your attention that I was craving. My legs are shaking. Maybe we should stop for a minute. I mean, we both say we just friends, but there's some things I haven't mentioned. You see, I keep my feelings distant because a relationship is what I am reminiscing. Maybe it would happen if I gave you a piece of me. Maybe my heart will shatter if you ended up dissing me. I'm sorry. I have to outweigh my options realistically. I mean, everyone is doing it, right? My homegirl does it all the time, so I should be all right. But what I didn't realize is that I opened up that door. We connected once, then we did it some more. Now I feel like I'm falling in love and you backing out. The pain and sorrow make me want to lash out, but you think I'm just being crazy. And when I pick up on the things you do, I consider it shady. All over one. Soul tie. A soul tie that lies that you don't even realize. But I'm crazy for noticing the little things that changed me. With the soul tie you gave me, well, we both did it. It was fun while it lasted, I admit it. But the after effects backfired and I feel like I made a mistake. And then I awake from this soul tie and asked the Lord my soul to take. I was tired of being run by a soul tie that I needed to break. Thank you.
Wow. I love it. I can't do my snapping. I just got to clap. I've never been a good snapper. Wow, that's really good. Hazel, I say keep on going. Do not stop. I can't wait for things to open back up. I hope that we can one day see you traveling with a group of poets and you guys do like some sort of a tour where you go to different places, like hit up Philadelphia, come to Phoenix, go to Los Angeles, do even Vegas, hit like major places and like do the thing. Cause
it's coming.
Any opportunity that you have like to do those things, I say do it. Yeah, this is like a talent, cause I know I can't do that. So I have an appreciation for you being able to do it. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Do you think that you'll end up writing some sort of a poetry book or something in the future?
With that being said, I'm actually in the process of making a poetry book.
Oh.
However, the only thing is that like how we were talking about earlier about like with there being a difference between like if you're reading it versus like me saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking more of doing like an audio book.
Oh.
So that way I'm actually saying the poem so you can actually feel it versus like you just reading it. Because I feel like oftentimes like poets, like they'll make a book, but they don't realize that how they meant for it to come off is different from how somebody else might perceive it.
You know what? That is so true.
Yes.
That's a good idea. Is there such thing? Will you be like the first that has that? Because I don't think I've heard of an audiobook where it's poetry and the artist is reading it. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I haven't heard of other poets doing it, to be honest. However, I know that a lot of poets, well, some poets, they might stream their poetry on, like, say for like instance, they might stream it on Apple Music or like things like that. And that's kind of what I was going more for, like actually streaming it out. Because I want to be able to have where I have my poems, where I'm actually speaking my poems so you can hear it. And then also having beats or some type of music playing in the backgrounds that goes with the vibe of it. So it kind of makes it even more interesting and gets you more involved in it versus you just, like I said, you just reading it out of a book.
Oh, I encourage you. I say definitely go for it because I could see me listening to it like while I'm moving around my house, in my car. Like you got my vote.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Everything is in the works, like I had to learn to not rush things. Like even though like at times I'm like, no, I want to put something out now. Like I want it out now. or like I want it out tomorrow. But just because that's my timing, that's not God's timing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, like, I kind of battle with that because it's like, no, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then it's like, God's not telling me that I can't do it. He's not saying for me to not do it. It's just not time yet.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Do you have a word for us today on patience, Hazel?
I mean, I guess so, because like how this conversation is going, like, I'm not even gonna lie, I'm still till this day learning to be patient, because oftentimes I feel like I was saying earlier, I just want things now. Like, I want to do it now, because I know oftentimes when I see other people like doing their thing, like, it encourages me, and I'm like, oh, now I'm hyped, now I want to do something, you know. But then it's like God's like, no, I want you to actually sit down and observe right now. Like, it's a difference when it's, oh, you see other people doing it and they're going for it, but then it's like, but God is having you sit down. So then you're kind of looking at yourself like, what did I do wrong? Like, is it me? But oftentimes when God sits us down, it's because he wants us to see what other people are doing and to go based off of that, as in, okay, like, you see how they did this? Okay, well, I don't want you to do it that way. Mm-hmm. And I feel like at times we get so caught up in seeing how other people are doing it, we tend to try to mimic it. But oftentimes God don't want us to mimic it. He wants us to do it in a whole new, unique way. And that's how I feel. I feel like God wants me to do it in a different way. So that's why he's like, yeah, you can encourage people to keep going. You can see that they're doing good, and that's not how I want you to go about with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just like just how I was talking about with the whole performing thing, how everybody else was doing music, and it was good. Like, I loved it. And then when I tried it, like, I basically failed, you know? And that's a part of life, like learning and accepting failure. So it was like I had to fail to realize that that's just not for me, and that God wanted me to do poetry. And there was a reason why when I did do showcases where it was mostly music, I was the only poet. And even people would come up to me after the shows and say, like, you did a good job. You did a great job. Even though in my mind, I'm like over here freaking out, like, oh, I'm the only poet. Like, they're not going to take me seriously or something, you know, like, you know, sometimes you just talk yourself into like a negative like mindset. But I had to realize that it's okay to be different. It's okay to wait your turn.
Yes. That was good. I agree 100%. Patience is a virtue. It really is. Sometimes I've seen it where people will take kindness, which is a part of being patient, to me as weakness, but they don't understand that is a strength, and that it's a blessing to have that person in your life that has that patience, because especially when it comes to them like going off on you, you know? Yeah. So
you're like, Jesus be offense.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, and all in due time. Yeah, but I'm totally loving your poetry. I think that you're doing a great job. I love it. I want you to remember that, to keep going and do you, and be your authentic self, and allow yourself to just flourish and blossom.
Yes,
and I'm going to be on the lookout for that poetry book, or streaming it on Apple, you know, and I'm not putting pressure for you to rush or anything, but I'm just letting you know, like, when you do get it done, definitely send me an email and let me know. You can come back on the show anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, honestly.
Thank you, Hazel, for coming on Authentic Talks. I really do appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. If you guys want to follow Hazel on social media, all of her platforms, she has the same name, which is Hazel Loves _ and the letter U. What did you think of the show?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
I know, right?
Yeah, thank you, Hazel. I enjoyed that.
I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I've been missing that.
It makes me miss it too. And like, I totally miss like everything, like comedies, clubs, and spoken word. And I just can't wait for things to open back up where we can get busy.
Yes.
All right, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. I'm Shanta with Authentic Talks.